Discover the incredible wisdom of two wolves, a life-changing journey to conquer your inner self. In a town choked by smog from the nearby factory smokestacks, Jake was the mechanic everyone counted on. He poured sweat and soul into his family-owned auto shop, hoping to pass down lessons of resilience to his daughter, Mia. But the weight of looming corporate chains made his heart race with dread. Every engine he tuned reminded him of the values he cherished and the struggle to keep the business alive. "You have to be brave, Mia," he often reminded her, firm but loving. Yet how could he shield her from the harsh reality? At just 11, Mia faced more than schoolwork. The unrelenting bullies left bruises on her spirit that he couldn't mend with tools or grease. He watched as their cruel laughter shattered her confidence, turning her bright eyes dim. It hurt him deeper than any scrape he ever faced on the job. Desperate to comfort her, he recalled an old fable from a man wise like the forest itself: two wolves battled within every person. One wolf thrived on fear, anger, and despair. The other, love, courage, and hope. "Which wolf wins?" Jake asked Mia. "The one you feed," she replied, yet the seeds of doubt lingered like smoke in the air. That story breathed life into their conversations, stirring a fire he hoped would outweigh the shadows. But darkness crept in, pushing its way deeper into their lives than Jake had anticipated. Tensions boiled within the small community, simmering with unspoken prejudices, especially after the heart attack of his neighbor, a kind veteran named Carl. It served as a wake-up call, reminding them all of life's fragility. Jake felt shaken to his core. Their values were being tested as never before, especially now that sorrow had woven itself into their fabric. The warmth of the community was fragile, hanging by a thread as voices quieted during town meetings. While the townspeople gathered, united in grief, Jake felt the weight of his shop's impending closure. Each promise from the corporate giant felt like a nail in the coffin of the community spirit he cherished. Words stuck in his throat, the futures felt bleak under the shadows of decision-makers who didn't care about the people, just profits. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake was at a crossroads. Inside, he struggled, just like his daughter. The weight of the world pressed upon him, yet Mia was ready to face her bullies, ready to conquer her own demons. He taught her strength, but now she needed to wield it. In their shared moment of vulnerability, the fabric of their bond grew tighter. With everything on the line, Jake faced the corporate threat. Would this spark of integrity muffle the chaos around them? Could he rally his community to stand against the upheaval? As the clouds loomed dark and heavy overhead, one thought echoed louder than the others: could love and resilience truly conquer the darkness, or were they destined to fight forever within? The struggle of a father and daughter, embroiled in the fight for their future, was far from over. Desperate for hope, Mia and Jake stood together, facing the unknown, ready or maybe frightened of what came next. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow that barely pierced through the gray pallor of the town. Jake sat on the old stool in his garage, a wrench clutched in his hand, but his focus was somewhere far beyond the steel and grease. He could hear the distant chatter of townsfolk gathering at the community center. It was a meeting that would decide their fate, a meeting he had to attend. Mia came in, her small frame silhouetted against the dim light. She looked different today, her hair slightly tousled and determination in her eyes. "Dad, are we going?" she asked, her voice steady as she crossed her arms. "Yeah, just give me a second," Jake said, forcing a smile despite the storm brewing in his heart. Today would be a turning point, one way or another. As they walked to the center, Mia's pace quickened, and Jake felt the warmth of hope flickering between them. Each step echoed their shared journey, reminding him of how far they had both come. The weight of the world felt slightly lighter in that moment, sharing it with Mia. They arrived to a crowded room filled with familiar faces, all seemingly weighed down by the same fears. Skepticism hung in the air like a thick fog. Jake could feel a prickly sensation in his throat, the dread of standing up and speaking his truth. When he cleared his throat, the room hushed, eyes shifting towards him, questioning and waiting. "It's good to see everyone here," Jake started, his voice quivering slightly. "We all know what's at stake. We've been through a lot, and we can't let it all go without a fight. This shop isn't just a business, it's a part of our lives, our families. We can't let those corporate men take this away from us." Cheers erupted in pockets across the room. For a fleeting moment, he felt invincible, their collective spirit fueling his courage. But then, a figure rose from the shadows, a local businessman who had long ago made peace with profit over community. "Jake, you're dreaming. No one will care if we lose a mechanic's shop. People want progress. This is a chance for new jobs and new money in our town." His voice was slick like oil, slicing through the room's tension. "Exactly," Jake countered, his heart pounding. "And at what cost? Our community, our values, our way of life, those can't be bought. What about Mia and the kids? What kind of town do we want for them?" Mia squeezed his hand, grounding him, reminding him why he was standing there. He looked into the eyes of their friends and neighbors. Pain, fear, and above all, a flicker of hope danced in the crowd. He willed them to feel that surge of love and courage he often spoke about. Together, they began to rise. One by one, people spoke of their dreams, their memories of moments that tied them to this place. As voices merged into a chorus, the doubt that had lingered began to dissolve. The meeting transformed, anger turned into resolve, despair into determination. Suddenly, a gasp filled the air, ripping his focus away. A woman clutched her chest, panic sweeping through her. It was Mrs. Williams, her face ashen. Jake's heart dropped. "Mia!" he shouted, "Call 911. The weight of the moment crashed down, and he dashed to her side, the room now swirling with chaos. In that instant of fear, Mia's soft voice echoed in Jake's mind, "Which wolf wins?" He glanced around, the room filled with uncertainty and fear. Could he teach his daughter that in times of crisis, the wolf of courage must lead? As they waited for help, Jake realized that this shared struggle was not just about saving a shop, it was about protecting something much deeper. Would they band together in the face of hardship, or would the darkness divide them? The urgency in the air thickened as they waited, and all Jake could think was, what would happen next? Would they find the strength within them to stand together? The stillness in the community center felt suffocating as Jake knelt beside Mrs. Williams. Her skin was cool and clammy, and he could hear the faint sounds of commotion behind him. A few townspeople were now circled around, eyes wide, whispering to one another. Their murmurings blended into an indistinct hum, but Jake focused solely on the woman before him. "Mrs. Williams," he said softly, trying to keep his voice steady. "Stay with us. Help is on the way." He gently held her hand, trying to transfer warmth into her frail form. Her eyes fluttered open slightly, and he caught a glimpse of fear reflected there, a mirror of what he felt inside. Mia returned, her small phone in hand, a look of dread etched on her face. "I called them, Dad. They're on their way," she said, her voice trembling. "Good job, sweetheart," he replied, forcing a reassuring smile. Inside, panic and dread twisted around him like a vice. What if help didn't come in time? The thought chilled him. Outside the chaos, Jake scanned the faces surrounding them. They were all watching, waiting, holding their breath. This was more than just about Mrs. Williams. It was a moment of vulnerability, and a reminder of how fragile life was. He felt the communal pulse of fear and sympathy, tied to their shared experiences, their shared hopes. Let us give her some space, someone said, a neighbor whose name Jake didn't recall in the moment. The crowd shifted back, but just slightly. Reluctance hung in their expressions. They didn't want to move too far away from the scene of panic but needed to respect it as well. Be careful what you feed, right? Mia whispered in his ear, her voice low. Jake's heart raced at the mention of the metaphor he had told her 1,000 times. He knew what she meant. The wolf of courage needed to be nurtured, otherwise, fear would consume them. Mia, can you help me? He asked quietly, feeling the weight of leadership. Could you go around and ask everyone to focus on the positives? Remind them why we're all here? This isn't just about Mrs. Williams, it's about us. She nodded, determination lighting up her face. While she moved through the crowd, Jake took a deep breath and returned his attention to Mrs. Williams, who slowly closed her eyes again, breath shallow. Stay with us, he said again, unsure if she could hear him. We're going to make it. I promise you that. Just then, the sound of sirens pierced through the air, slicing the tension like a knife. Relief washed over him, but it was quickly mixed with a wave of apprehension. They were getting help, but what would that mean? How would this affect the dynamic of the meeting? Would their hopes deflate if they lived through this moment of crisis? The paramedics rushed in, their expressions focused and professional, shaking Jake from his spiral. He stepped aside, letting them do their work, his hand clasped firmly in Mia's as she returned to his side. What will happen now? She asked, looking up at him with wide eyes. I don't know, Mia. But what I do know is that we can't lose sight of why we're fighting, he replied, squeezing her hand gently. As the paramedics began to stabilize Mrs. Williams, murmurs began circulating again, but this time they carried a different tone. There was a flicker of determination igniting in the crowd. The fight was still theirs, with bonds sharpened by the urgency of the moment. But then Jake turned around, his heart sinking as he caught sight of the businessman who had challenged his words earlier. He stood in the doorway, a cruel smile playing at the edges of his lips, as if he were surveying the chaos with cold satisfaction. What was he planning? Would their sense of unity shatter at that moment, or would they rise above? Jake's heart raced once more, uncertainty colliding with fierce resolve within him. He thought of Mrs. Williams, of Mia, of everything that mattered, and deep down, he knew it wasn't over yet. The battle for their community had truly just begun. What would they choose to fight for next? The paramedics worked swiftly. Jake's heart pounded in tandem with the beeping machines surrounding Mrs. Williams. Their hands moved with practiced precision, an orchestra of emergency response, and Jake felt helpless. He wanted to dive in, to do something more than stand by, but he knew he had to let the professionals handle it. Mia stood by him, her expression shifting from anxiety to awe. As the paramedics lifted Mrs. Williams onto a stretcher, Jake caught her eye. It's going to be okay, he said, though he wasn't entirely sure of that. Mia nodded, but her face showed a mixture of fear and determination as she watched the woman being carried away. Dad, can we go with her? She asked, glancing up at him, wide-eyed. I think they'll take good care of her at the hospital. We need to stay here, he replied, fighting the urge to follow the stretcher. The crowd was dimming, faces still tinged with worry yet now animated with a bit more resolve. I can feel it, Dad, Mia said, breaking the silence that had fallen between them. It's like something changed after she collapsed. Everyone's ready to fight again. Jake looked around at the group, their faces a mix of fear and strength. Was that truly it? He couldn't shake off the businessman's presence lingering in his mind. The air felt heavier with his looming presence, like a cloud over their hopes. Then, the businessman stepped forward, arms crossed over his tailored suit, eyes glinting. I think this shows how vulnerable we all are. What are you going to do now, Jake? You've always talked about unity, look where that got you. The words hit like stones. Jake felt the sting, but he refused to buckle. We're not going to let fear win, he asserted, voice steady despite the tremor in his gut. We're going to lift each other up. That's how we always come through. You think so? The businessman scoffed, a cruel inflection sharpening his tone. Do you really believe this is enough to save your little community? Jake's breath caught. How dare he diminish their struggle? Anger flared within him. This was about more than just words. Life was stronger than petty greed. With a firm grip on Mia's hand, Jake took a step towards the man. Mrs. Williams is a reminder, not just of our fragility, but of our strength. We're not here to crumble, we're here to rise together, no matter what it takes. Those words seemed to ignite a spark among the crowd. He could feel it, a swell of energy, determination radiating from neighbors who had known one another for years, who had fought past battles together. Let us not wait for things to fall apart before we act. Jake called, his voice amplifying through the murmurs. Suddenly, he felt the warmth of countless eyes on him, the crowd waiting, willing to move. The businessman's smirk faltered, and for the first time, Jake felt a shift in the dynamic. But it wasn't enough, he sensed the need for something more. Who's with me? He called out, feeling the rhythm of shared breaths and beating hearts. Hands started to raise, one after another, as determination rippled through the crowd. We're with you. More and more people shouted, their voices melding into a sound of defiance against fear and division. Suddenly, Mia tugged at his sleeve. Dad! Look! Jake turned, and for a moment, everything else fell away. There, standing shoulder to shoulder with their neighbors, was Mrs. Williams' daughter, her face a mask of resolve. She held a hastily made sign that read, "Together, we rise." Jake's heart swelled as he saw the connection. This wasn't just about Mrs. Williams anymore, it was a fight for each other and for a community that refused to back down. What do we fight for? Jake shouted into the gathering storm of voices. For unity. Someone roared in return. For hope. Shouted another. And for Mrs. Williams. Cheers erupted, and the businessman's irritation morphed into palpable frustration as his hold on power began to slip away. But just as Jake felt the tides shift, a flurry of movement caught his attention. From the back, someone pushed through, breathing heavily, eyes wild. You need to hear this. What new challenge had arrived now? Jake's stomach twisted with uncertainty. He had led them this far, but the battle was far from over. What awaited them next? The crowd shifted, a collective breath held in anticipation. Jake's heart raced again, uncertainty bubbling beneath his confidence. What was it now? Who was this newcomer, and why did they look so frantic? The figure approached, dripping with sweat, a cascade of adrenaline shimmering in her eyes. It was Karen, a fellow community member, her dark wavy hair sticking to her forehead. There was a sense of urgency in her stance that pushed Jake to the forefront of anxiety. What's happening? He asked, trading one worry for another. Did something happen at the hospital? No, it's not that, she panted, hands on her hips as she steadied herself. I mean, I don't know if it's connected, but you've got to hear this. Jake took a step closer, intrigued yet wary. The crowd quieted, startled by her urgency. Mrs. Williams, there's something we didn't know, Karen said, her voice still breathless, each word weighing heavily. Before she collapsed, she was talking to me. She was worried, but it was more than that. She mentioned a project, something about her past, and it involves the businessman. The murmurs that rippled through the crowd transformed into a hushed wave of disbelief. Jake leaned in, a flicker of hope igniting within him. What kind of project? He pressed gently, his mind racing. Karen checked the audience, her gaze flicking over familiar faces hungry for answers. She said she was going to share it at the next community meeting. It's supposed to be big. Something about his business practices, how he's using the community to get what he wants. Jake felt the weight of her words. Anger and determination surged through him, bubbling with new energy at the idea that there was something tangible they could turn against the businessman. What was she getting at? He asked, but Karen shook her head. I don't know. All I got was this sense that it was important. We can't wait to find out if she's okay. We need to figure this out now. A wave of murmurs against the backdrop of a growing frenzy engulfed him. Thoughts raced through Jake's mind. They needed to rally this energy, to harness the community's strength before the businessman could tighten his grip again. Okay. Jake declared, but his voice was tinged with urgency. Let us dig deeper. We'll go to the hospital, we'll find out what Mrs. Williams knows. This fight isn't over. The crowd erupted into a chorus of agreement, hands rising higher in a show of solidarity. Let us do it. Mia cheered, her young voice breaking through the tension with infectious enthusiasm. Together. Karen added, rallying the crowd once more. But just as they prepared to march towards the hospital, a frown crossed Jake's face. Wait, we need a plan. We need to approach this wisely. We can't storm in without knowing more. A voice from the back spoke up, tinged with concern. And what if he gets wind of this? We can't give him the upper hand again. There's more at stake here, Jake, another neighbor chimed in. What happens if she can't tell us what she found out? We can't risk losing our momentum. Jake felt his heart pounding. Was the businessman's influence already working against them? The tension crackled as ideas were tossed around like volleyed balls, but the stakes were higher now. The urgency of finding Mrs. Williams weighed heavily. He glanced at Mia, then back at Karen and the rest of the group. We'll move quietly. We'll gather information, and we will be smart about this. No one gets left behind. As they collected themselves, plans starting to form, Jake's mind flickered back to Mrs. Williams, the community's beloved anchor. But something nagged at him, a sense that the truth they were chasing might expose deeper issues buried within their little town, things that might change everything. As they began their stealthy advance towards the hospital, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the end of this path was not just about saving one woman, but uncovering a reckoning that had long been waiting. Would they be ready to face whatever truth lay ahead? The streets felt more alive than ever as Jake led the group, tension hanging thick in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. They moved stealthily, ensuring their whispers didn't draw any unwanted attention. Jake felt the adrenaline coursing through him, but there was a heaviness in his stomach. They needed more than courage, they needed clarity. As they approached the hospital, the familiar scent of antiseptic and faint echoes of distant conversations filled Jake's senses. He paused momentarily, scanning the building. It was a place that had always provided safety and healing. Now, it felt like a battleground. Okay, here's the plan, he instructed the group, his voice low but firm. We'll split up. Karen, Mia, you two check in at the reception and see if anyone has spoken to Mrs. Williams. The rest of us will look for anyone outside who might know more about her condition. Nods of agreement confirmed they were fired up. Even in his hesitation, Jake felt reassured by their unity. This wasn't just a mission to save one person, it was a shared commitment to protect their community. As they parted ways at the entrance, Jake's heart raced. He turned toward a small bench outside, spotting an elderly man sitting alone, eyes cast downward, fingers tapping nervously on the seat. Jake approached him slowly. Excuse me, sir, have you seen Mrs. Williams today? The man looked up, his lined face etched with worry. Mrs. Williams? Yes, I saw her being wheeled in not long ago. She looked troubled. Troubled how? Jake pressed, feeling a deep knot form in his chest. The man sighed, his voice barely above a whisper. She was talking about something it seemed important. Something about the businessman. She kept repeating his name. Jake's throat tightened. What name? he asked, more determined than ever. Barnes. She said, he's been using the others, manipulating everyone into silence. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Jake felt the weight of the truth pressing against his chest. Could it be that Mrs. Williams had uncovered something massive? A commotion broke Jake's concentration as Mia and Karen rushed back, breathless and wide-eyed. They're saying she might need surgery. Karen exclaimed. What? Jake's stomach dropped. Did you find out what she knew? Not yet, but the nurse said she was sketching something before she collapsed. Something urgent. A fire ignited in Jake's core. We need to find that sketch. It could be the key to everything. Just then, a voice boomed from behind them. Hey! What are you doing loitering around here? It was security, eyes narrowing. Oh! Time to move. Mia shouted, and they quickly turned to make a break for it, feet pounding against the pavement in a fast rhythm. They ducked into a side hallway, breathless and scared. Jake's mind raced. We can't give up now. We need to keep pushing forward. But as they squeezed into a corner, uncertainty crept in again. What if they were too late? What if the truth they were clinging to slipped through their fingers like grains of sand? Jake, Karen said softly, if she can't tell us what she knows, how do we fight against something we can't see? Jake caught Mia's hopeful gaze. It was a reminder of why they were doing this. They were fighting not for glory but for every life this businessman had touched. We'll figure it out, Jake declared, though doubt gnawed at the edges of his resolve. We have to believe that there's something we can do. They pressed deeper into the hospital, the clatter of their footsteps echoing ominously. As they turned another corner, their eyes fell upon a doorway. Light spilled from inside, a glimmer of hope, or perhaps an ominous challenge that awaited them. Jake took a deep breath. It was time to find out if they were ready for whatever lay ahead and what secrets just might unfold behind closed doors. Jake took a cautious step toward the doorway, the light illuminating his anxious features. This was the moment they'd been preparing for. Whatever lay on the other side could change everything. With a deep breath, he pushed the door open, revealing a small, cluttered room. Inside, scattered papers covered an old wooden table, and the air was thick with the smell of aged books. A nurse sat hunched over, her brow furrowed in concentration as she scribbled notes. With a start, she looked up, eyes widening at the sight of the 4 teenagers. Hey! You shouldn't be here! She exclaimed, her voice sharp but laced with concern. Jake stepped forward, lifting his hands in a gesture of peace. Wait. We're looking for Mrs. Williams. We heard she was sketching something important right before she collapsed. Do you know where it is? The nurse hesitated, caught off guard by the urgency in Jake's voice. Sketching? There was a flicker of realization in her eyes. She was supposed to have it with her when they took her to surgery. But, she trailed off, glancing back at the table cluttered with paper. In that moment, doubt cracked through Jake's confidence. What if they were too late? Please. It could be the key to stopping whatever is happening with Barnes. The nurse looked conflicted, her resolve wavering. You need to get out of here. It's not safe. He'll come after you too. Who will? Barnes? Karen pressed, her voice strong. The nurse nodded slowly. He's got a lot of influence. People are scared, and Mrs. Williams, she was one of the only ones who tried to speak up. Determination flooded through Jake again. Then all the more reason we need to find that sketch. We can't let his manipulation continue. Okay, the nurse finally conceded, her posture relaxing slightly. If you're really set on this, I might have a lead. One of the doctors mentioned Mrs. Williams was drawing something about a location. Something Azalea. I didn't catch the full name. Azalea? Jake murmured, the word triggering memories of a nearby abandoned factory. Is that? Mia started but stopped as the click of heels echoed down the hall. Security. The nurse hissed, urgency flashing in her eyes. Go. Now. Jake urged as he grabbed her arm, pulling her towards the back exit. They darted past the cluttered furniture, adrenaline surging through them. They bolted through the door at the far end of the room, breathing heavily. Once outside, fresh air cut through the heavy tension. It felt invigorating yet terrifying. Did you hear that? Azalea could lead us to something. Jake panted. Karen's eyes narrowed. It's a risk, but we don't have any other options. We need to move quickly. Soon they were racing down the street, leaving the hospital behind. But with every step, Jake's heart raced with more than just fear. He sensed they were onto something big, something that could shift the balance of power back toward those who needed it most. People are relying on us, he exclaimed. We can't screw it up. But just as they turned a corner, a figure stepped out from the shadows. It was a face Jake recognized, a man whose presence turned the air thick with anxiety. Been looking for you, the man smirked, his eyes glinting in the shadows. And I think we need to talk. Jake's heart sank. The storm they'd been running from had finally caught up to them. What would the man's words mean for their quest for the truth? Would they learn more or would the shadows close in around them? Jake's mind raced. The man before him was not just some random threat, he was Ryan Cole, a name that echoed through the halls of their school. Known for his sharp wit and quicker fists, Ryan was a piece of the puzzle Jake had tried to ignore. Standing there, confidence radiating from every last inch of him, Jake felt a mix of dread and anger boiling within. What do you want? Jake demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. He could feel the tension rising among the group. Karen's grip tightened on Mia's arm, while Nick shifted his weight uneasily, ready to react at any moment. Ryan chuckled, leaning slightly against the wall and crossing his arms. Oh, just curious about your little adventure. You know it's dangerous to be poking around where you don't belong. You might want to turn back. He feigned concern, but the glimmer in his eyes told a different story. We're not afraid of you, Karen shot back, her voice strong, but Jake noticed the subtle tremor behind it. Ryan smirked, enjoying the reaction he was getting. But you should be. Barnes doesn't like messes, and you kids are getting dangerously close to one. In that moment, Jake felt the weight of their mission crash down on him. They had already come so far, and now this? Fear wrapped around him like a heavy cloak, threatening to suffocate any flicker of hope that remained. What do you know about Barnes? Jake challenged, stepping closer to Ryan, emboldened by the urgency coursing through him. He's a monster, and we're not going to let him keep hurting people. We've got to find Mrs. Williams' sketch. It could expose everything he has been doing. Ryan raised an eyebrow, seemingly intrigued. Mrs. Williams? So that's what this is about? He rocked back on his heels, unbothered by Jake's intensity. And here I thought you were just ducking reckoning. But listen, you might not want that sketch as much as you think. Sometimes, ignorance is bliss. His casual demeanor ignited anger deep within Jake. You think that ignorance will save us? People are suffering because of Barnes. We need to stop him. Ryan looked at him, a flicker of something, was it admiration or disdain, passing across his face. You really think you can take him on? His tone turned serious, and for a moment, Jake hoped he might have reached him. You're charging headfirst into a game that you don't understand. It's not just about the sketch. It's about power. Jake's heart raced. His instincts screamed for him to push farther. Then help us. We don't have to be enemies. Ryan paused, the playful edge fading from his smile. Help you? What's in it for me? Just then, a siren blared in the distance. Panic surged in Jake's chest as he looked past Ryan. We don't have time for this. Ryan's expression changed. He stepped forward, lowering his voice. Listen, I can't help you openly. But if you're really serious about sticking it to Barnes, meet me at the old azalea factory tonight. Why should we trust you? Mia piped up, her voice trembling slightly. Trust is a two-way street, Ryan replied, and just as quickly as he appeared, he stepped back into the shadows. But you'll want to be there, if you want the truth. Jake exchanged worried glances with the others. They were beyond the point of no return. Did they dare put their faith in Ryan? What do we do? Karen whispered, her eyes wide. Tonight, we find out, Jake said slowly, steeling himself for the uncertainty that lay ahead. We have to take a leap of faith. Whoever Ryan is, if he knows something that can help, we need to hear it. As they hurried away from the corner, the weight of their decision loomed heavy. Would they find the answers they sought? Or were they walking into a trap? All they knew was they had to confront their fears. They were already in deep, and now they had to dive even deeper. What awaited them at the factory? Jake's heart pounded with both dread and anticipation. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced across the empty streets as Jake and his friends hurried toward the old azalea factory. The air was thick with tension, the weight of their decision hanging over them like a storm cloud. Each step felt heavier, echoing against the crumbling concrete and rusted metal that loomed ahead. Are you sure about this? Mia's voice trembled, the question hanging in the air like a whispered prayer. What if Ryan's just using us? Jake could understand the fear in her eyes. They were stepping into the unknown, a territory where nothing was guaranteed but danger. We won't know unless we go. We have to try, he replied, his voice firmer than he felt. Barnes can't keep winning. But doubt gnawed at him. Was trusting Ryan a mistake? Or was it the only option? The lines between right and wrong blurred when shadows of power loomed that large. The factory stood before them, an ancient beast with peeling paint and broken windows. Each towering wall seemed to whisper secrets from the past. They approached cautiously, hearts racing. Karen clutched Mia's arm tighter, as if together they could fend off any lurking dangers. Let us stick together, Nick urged, scanning the area. No wandering off. He glanced back toward the darkness where they had just come, as if expecting Ryan to appear any moment. They slipped inside, the stale air hitting them like a wave. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light streaming through the broken glass. What if this is a trap? Nick whispered, anxiety spilling out in his voice. Then we'll face it together, Jake promised, trying to inject some calm into the storm of fear swirling in the room. The place was empty, but it felt alive with tension and the threat of what might come next. The sound of footsteps echoed from the back. A chill ran down Jake's spine as he feared the worst. They turned, hearts pounding, as Ryan emerged from the shadows. The grin on his face was insidious, hiding whatever truths he might unveil. Glad you could make it, he said, his voice smooth but laced with an unshakable edge. What do you know about Barnes? Jake pressed, unable to hold back the urgency. We need to know what we're up against. Ryan studied them, his expression unreadable. You think you're ready to take him on? This isn't a fairy tale, kids. It's about survival. Then tell us how, Karen demanded, stepping forward. Her determination lit a fire inside Jake. They were not here to cower, they were here to confront the truth, whatever that might be. Ryan's gaze shifted between the four of them, weighing their resolve. You want to confront Barnes? You'll need information that can tilt the scales in your favor. He rolled his shoulders, as if preparing for a heavy truth. But knowledge comes at a cost. Cost? Mia echoed, her eyes wide. What are you talking about? Risk, Ryan replied simply. I can give you a lead, but you have to earn it. You have to prove your loyalty, even if it means facing your worst fears. With that, he stepped closer, his expression sharp. "Tonight, you'll choose, turn back now or embrace what's waiting for you. It all starts here." The weight of his words crashed down on them. Jake felt the room grow colder, the stakes rising like the tide. "What do you mean facing our fears?" Nick asked, the tremor in his voice betraying his bravado. Ryan smirked, a flicker of excitement dancing in his eyes. "You'll see soon enough. Are you ready to dive into the darkness?" Jake looked at his friends, and in that moment, he knew they were already too deep to turn back. They had crossed a line, and there was no way out but through. "Let us do this," Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying the weight of a decision that could change everything. They were ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, no matter how dangerous. As they prepared to take the leap, a sense of camaraderie wrapped around them like a warm blanket, pushing their fears aside. But was bravery enough to face the darkness ahead? What would they uncover in the depths of the Azalea factory? They were about to find out. Inside the darkened factory, their footsteps echoed ominously as Jake and his friends followed Ryan deeper into the heart of the crumbling structure. The further they ventured, the more the shadows seemed to thicken, pooling at their feet, ready to swallow them whole. Yet amidst the fear, a fierce light ignited within Jake. This was the moment of truth, and he could feel the eyes of his community behind him, urging him on. "Stay close," he whispered, glancing back at Mia, whose expression was a mix of trepidation and resolve. She had grown so much. The little girl he once shielded was now a brave young fighter, ready to embrace the storm. They reached a chamber with rusted machinery looming like giants in the dim light. Ryan halted, turning to face them, his demeanor shifting to one of serious anticipation. "You're about to uncover the truth behind Barnes' empire. Keep your wits about you." "What do you mean?" Karen pressed, her voice steady. "Inside this room are files and records that tell a story about the company connections he doesn't want anyone to discover." Ryan gestured to a heavy door at the far end, its hinges creaking with age. "But to get there, you have to confront what haunts you. Only then will you prove you can handle the truth." Jake's heart raced, but he felt a surge of determination. This wasn't just about battling fear, it was about embracing what it meant to fight for each other, to stand tall against darkness. He could feel Mia's small hands squeezing his tightly, mirroring the strength radiating from their unity. "What do we have to do?" Nick asked, eyes wide but glimmering with bravery. Ryan stepped back, creating a space for them to consider. "You'll face choices that will push you to your limits. Each of you, alone." The room fell silent as they contemplated the weight of his words. Mia stepped forward, eyes blazing. "What if we refuse?" "I don't recommend that." Ryan's voice was calm but edged with urgency. "You need this. Barnes isn't just a businessman, he's a predator. You either fight or let him win." "I refuse to let fear control me," Jake declared. The darkness in the room faded slightly with the resolve in his voice, calling out a sense of purpose. "What do we have to lose?" A small nod from Ryan indicated his acceptance. "Then let us get started. You will face your fears one at a time, and only then can you unlock the knowledge to fight back." Jake stepped forward, adrenaline coursing through his veins as the room warped around him. Suddenly, he was standing in a vivid memory. The bullying that had plagued Mia for years filled his thoughts. The shadows transformed into the grotesque figures of those bullies, taunting him. "Look at you, Jake. How can you protect her when you can't even protect yourself?" "No more!" Jake shouted, his voice resounding against the walls. He felt the weight of his daughter's struggles. With newfound strength, he confronted the illusions, acknowledging the pain but refusing to let it dictate his worth. "I am more than your fear." The shadows twisted and evaporated, and with an overwhelming rush of energy, Jake found himself back in the chamber, panting but unbroken. "Mia," he called, "it's your turn now." Mia stepped forward, anxiety flashing in her eyes. But Jake knew she had the heart of a warrior. As she faced her own impending fears, he whispered words of courage he had instilled in her since she was a child: "You're stronger than you know." With each challenge the four faced, they peeled away layers of doubt, confronting their insecurities and emerging triumphant. Karen fought through her doubt of never being enough. Nick broke the chains of his self-imposed limitations. Each victory culminated into a powerful camaraderie, forging their resolve like reinforced steel. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the door Ryan had pointed out. With racing hearts and hands trembling, they stepped inside. Rows of documents lined the walls, and a single file on a table caught Jake's eye. He opened it, heart leaping as he scanned the pages. This was evidence of the exploitation and manipulation Barnes had kept hidden. "Look at this," he breathed, showing the others. They gathered around him, scanning the pages revealing the crooked dealings and the plundering of their community for profit. "This is what we needed," Mia exclaimed, her voice filled with renewed hope. "We can show everyone." Jake felt buoyed by their unity, but his mind raced as fear bled into realization. "Do you think he'll come after us?" "They've already seen us here," Ryan chimed in, a look of respect etched across his face. "But they don't know what you have." Jake nodded, determination overtaking the fear. "We need to get this back to town. This is our weapon against the darkness." As they prepared to leave the factory, footsteps thundered outside. They had to move quickly. "Stay together," Jake commanded, fear and strength battling within him. They darted through the hallways, hearts pounding with urgency, but as they emerged into the moonlit night, they found themselves surrounded by familiar faces, their community, armed with resolve. "Together!" Jake shouted, lifting the file high above his head, the light of hope flickering in the faces of their neighbors. "Together, we fight for what's right." With a collective roar, the townsfolk rallied behind them. What seemed to be an insurmountable shadow was now illuminated by the strength of unity and love. They stood together, facing the threat of the businessmen and ready to reclaim their future. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, illuminating the battle-worn town, Jake felt tears of joy filling his eyes. They had found their truth, their strength, and most importantly, one another. "Which wolf wins?" Mia's voice echoed in Jake's heart. "The one we feed," he replied, beaming with pride and joy. They would keep feeding the wolf of hope together. This is it. Time to share your thoughts. You need to subscribe now to stay with us in this powerful journey. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like and make a difference. Tell us your feelings about this ending in the comments below. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us keep the spirit alive.